Hey, you've all followed my journey with She Plus and might be thinking about starting your own podcast. Well, I'm here to tell you to use Anchor for yours. Let me explain. Anchor is a completely free platform that allows you to record and edit your episodes right from your computer. Easy, right? Well, that's actually not all. Anchor also sets you up for success by distributing your podcast to platforms like Spotify and Apple. You don't even have to lift a finger. And finally, you can make quick, easy money on Anchor, even if you have a smaller audience. It's everything you need all in one place. Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
I am proud to be a woman.
Girls and women are
powerful,
beauty,
badass, feminine,
passion,
equality,
power, professional,
diligence,
advocates for change.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the She Is podcast. This is episode 1, and I'm really excited to have you all here listening today. I wanted to give you a brief introduction of our guest on the episode today. I sat down and had the chance to interview Jamie Liner. She's a good friend of mine and colleague from work, and wanted to talk to her a little bit more about her story. And one of the highlights, I won't steal her thunder before we dive in, but she did things a little bit different than I did, and that's really one of the cool things and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to her. Not just because she has Michelle Obama arms, but I will say, if you take a look, she definitely has better arms than Michelle Obama. Not creepy, it's just true. Anyways, I really wanted to bring Jamie on to talk to her more about the ways in which she navigated her life when she came to Charlotte. It's definitely a unique story and completely different and new, and it was really exciting to sit down and talk to her. So without further ado, let's hear a little bit more from Jamie. Welcome to episode 1 of the She Is podcast. This is your host, Elise. Thanks for coming back. I hope you're excited, as I am today, for our first guest. I'm here with Jamie Liner, and she is on our episode today to talk a little bit more about her amazing story. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey Elise, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. I'm honored, flattered, very excited, a little bit nervous. Not the best public speaker, never mind being on a podcast, but this will be fun. So we work together. That's how I met Elise. She's been a great friend over the past couple of months, always keeps me laughing at work, and we've grown a little bit closer outside of work. She was a rock star on our dodgeball team. Keeps me laughing. So I grew up in Rhode Island, the ocean state, the smallest state. I was in New England my entire life, went to school in Connecticut, moved to Boston, and about 9 months ago find myself just wanting a change, and I picked up and moved my life to Charlotte, and here I am to stay.
Wow, that's huge. So what made you want to move?
So I was in Boston, as I just said, for 4 years. It was great. I had a perfectly fine apartment, a perfectly fine job. I had really good friends that I have made from there and that have been lifelong friends. There was just something that was missing. And kind of over time, I was just really digging and analyzing, as I do best, and trying to figure out what was missing. And I just think that what was missing was change. And so I knew that Florida would have been a little bit too south and too far away. California was a little bit too west and too far away. As I said, I've been in New England my whole life, but I really wanted warmer weather, milder winters, warmer weather, nicer people, friendlier people. I was sick of public transportation. I wanted some space. So I did a little bit of a tour up and down the East Coast with my mom. She was a great sport and very supportive throughout this whole process of me wanting change and trying to find whatever that meant, and found Charlotte, North Carolina, this little hidden gem. I'd never been. I had no reason to ever come before. None of my friends had ever been, so they were really quite skeptical of what the heck I was trying to do here. But found Charlotte. everyone was really nice, very young. The city is vibrant and growing, very clean.
Did you moved here with like literally no knowledge whatsoever or any connections whatsoever in Charlotte, or did you actually know people here?
That's a really funny story that is kind of fun to answer. So when I kind of dropped the pin on the map and said, I'm going to move to Charlotte, I did not know anybody here. I did not have a job set up. I didn't have an apartment lined up. I just decided to move. After I started telling my friends and family that, I did find a connection. I have a long-lost cousin that lives here. She has three young kids, and when I found my first apartment, we were about 2 miles away from each other. So she was a saving grace of being very supportive and welcoming, and told me where to get my hair cut, and told me where to get my oil changed, and those little things that you just need to know.
That's important. I still go to Supercuts. So.
Exactly. Yeah, she gave me her, her salon recommendation, all that great stuff. So that was really, really welcoming. But aside from her, no, I didn't know anybody.
Honestly, like, I admire that because that seems like something that's really hard to do. Walking away from something that you're really comfortable with, something that you know, and going to completely unfamiliar territory. Were you scared, or what did you feel like?
I wasn't scared. Maybe a little nervous just because of the unknown and such a big change in life. For those that know me, which is obviously none of these listeners, but everyone.
Hey, maybe some. Shout out to work.
Okay, let's see. Thank you, everyone. I'm very type A. I try to have my entire life planned out ahead of me, never mind the next day, week, month. So this was very uncharacteristic to just kind of make a huge change without a real plan. I didn't have a job. I didn't know anybody. There was nothing really bringing me here aside from chasing this vision in my head of what I wanted the rest of my 20s to look like. And so no, I really wasn't scared, just confident in the fact that I have strong people skills. I'm very friendly, knowing that when I'm in a positive environment, I'm my best self, and knew I could make friends, knew I could find a job. So no, it was this kind of freaky thing where I was not scared to uproot my life, and thankfully my parents helped me drive my belongings down. I packed up my little Jetta and drove everything I owned down to Charlotte, and they helped me set up my apartment, and we got a few meals together, and they got to see the space. So I was really, really supportive of them to be able to kind of move me down here. But I lost my train of thought. No,
That's okay.
No, I wasn't scared, and just kind of, it was a huge leap of faith, and kind of told myself that I had a year to find a good job, a year to make connections, a year to try someplace completely new on my own, and worst case, I moved back, or I moved somewhere new. It's kind of the beauty of being very single and not locked down by a mortgage or a job. And so I just decided to pick up and start fresh.
Wow, that's crazy. And so what did the first couple of days without your parents look like here? What did you do the second that you got here?
Oh, it was so great. Don't get me wrong, I love my parents. We're very, very, very close, but I didn't have a job yet. So I got in my car and got to find the nearest grocery store, and I drove up to the lake, and I just kind of tried to take advantage of a little bit of sightseeing and just some exploring in my immediate neighborhood that I knew once kind of life happened, I wouldn't really have that time. So thankfully I had a little bit of extra of that time. And then I started teaching bar method 4 days after I moved here.
Wow. So is that kind of where the circle started of getting to know people and getting more comfortable?
Definitely. So something I didn't say before was back in Boston, I trained and became certified in bar method, which is a boutique fitness class. And
it's hard.
Elise did come. She can definitely vouch for that. And so thankfully I was able to transfer that skill to Charlotte. And there's an amazing studio in South Park, shameless plug, next to Whole Foods.
Not an advertisement.
That welcomed me with open arms, to be able to teach there, be a lifelong student and client there. And that's kind of really where I was able to start making connections with the clients, with the other instructors, with the owner. And that's kind of really what kicked off, I think, the official welcoming to Charlotte for me.
That's awesome. I honestly, and I know that you've listened to a little bit of my teaser into this podcast and kind of why I'm doing it, and then other people out there listening maybe know a little bit about that I didn't do a very good job of what you were just saying. I'm actually very familiar with the East Coast when it comes to North Carolina, South Carolina, so Charlotte was not unfamiliar territory, and there are people here that I know, and I did not do a very good job of it. So what advice would you give to somebody who might be struggling with coming to a new place or a familiar place and not really knowing how to get out there to make friends with people and figure out and navigate their 20-somethings and figuring out how to live their best life?
Ooh, that's a really good one.
It's a bit hard-hitter question.
Definitely a hard hitter. It's hard. I mean, certainly don't want to discount the fact that it's emotionally draining, physically draining, mentally draining at times, just to kind of put yourself out there. So don't want to discount that by any means. I think being intentional with it is really important to, do a little bit of research and find a club or an activity that you really enjoy, or find a little wine bar or a brewery that's close to your neighborhood that you feel comfortable stopping by after work and just sitting at the bar and having a drink to enjoy the sunshine. Really just putting yourself out there. Body language is huge, having a big smile on your face, and I think when you move to a new place, it's terrifying, but if you're able to kind of make that little mental shift of this is new, this is exciting, this is a brand new journey, and you're open to it, your body language shows, and people will approach you, especially in the South. I've learned it's very different than where I grew up, which I think was a huge draw for me personally. But yeah, walking around the street or walking through the mall, you just kind of walk around and smile as you're browsing, and people just start talking to you, which is really nice. And I think just talking to random people and putting yourself out there a little bit, like I was saying, with an activity or a fitness studio, or just sitting at the park and talking to the dog walker that's next to you, you just really never know who you're going to be talking to, how to make connections. They may be from the same town that your mom grew up in and you have mutual friends. That's a random example, but things like that I've been learning in Charlotte, where there's so many different connections that you're able to kind of bond and then pick up your conversation from there.
No, I mean, she's shaking her head now like she doesn't know what she's talking about, but she's so right. I did not honestly do any of that. I went to Wake Forest, and literally there's a pipeline of students that come from that school into Charlotte, and I can call out my bullshit right now that I didn't do what you're saying of being a little bit more open, being a little bit more transparent, and communicating with people and just being openly friendly. And I think sometimes that comes down to this factor of being really self-conscious about how do I reach out to people that I don't really know, or I knew them from school but we're really not that good of friends, and it would be kind of weird to text them or call them, and how do I break into that space or break into friend groups that are already formed and, you're not their first thought. Those types of things are a really big struggle. So do you have any thought? I don't know, have you ever had anything where you've had to focus on that before or had struggles with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd honestly say once I decided on Charlotte, I kind of dove in full force and looked up alumni groups that were in Charlotte and my old sorority group that was in Charlotte, and just different ways to network as much as possible, just because you never know who's going to be here or who knows somebody that is here. And kind of that it's a very small world, and Charlotte is way smaller than I ever thought it was going to be. There were 2 guys that I went to school with that lived here. I reached out to both of them. Not that we were close by any means. One was much closer with than the other. But I reached out to both of them, and I'm like, hey, I'm coming to Charlotte. Give me pointers on which area. Would love to catch up, grab a beer. Just very surface level, very just open and positive. And they both immediately responded that they were thrilled, wanted to catch up, grab a beer, show me around, watch a Patriots game. So people I think are more open. Even though it is a little bit scary and to be self-conscious about that little reach out or opportunity, I think people are open to it. All right, can I turn the tables and ask you a question?
You can.
All right, this is so exciting. I feel very powerful with a microphone in front of me. It feels like bar class.
Maybe you'll go back to school now.
Yeah,
Go be a journalist.
Perhaps. Okay, so thank you again for inviting me to be your, first of all, a guest, never mind your first guest. This has been pretty exciting and
Great.
it's really, really great being along for the ride and seeing you grow and thrive and something that you enjoy being so creative and that you're so passionate about. I'd love to know, as your friend, but also as a very active listener, why this, why now, why she is, because it's not like you have all this time in the world. You're very busy working full time and going back to school and traveling and being very social. So why did it feel like this was the right time to launch this?
Where did that come from? That's a hard-hitting question. All right.
Speaking of being courageous, this is your time to shine.
Okay. Why this? Like, why this podcast, or why?
Why everything?
Just a big why.
Big why.
I don't want to be that cliche of why not, but the big thing for me, so listeners out there, most of you probably know by this point, I haven't mentioned it, but I'm going back to school. I'm going to grad school for journalism, and recently informed a lot of my colleagues and friends and family that I'd be making this big change. So this is in part me stretching my curiosity and my passions of journalism. I've always really liked podcasting, which is why I'm doing it, just because I think it's really cool. It's fun. I get really, is there something that you do, I don't know if it's bar or what it is, but you can't stop thinking about when something else will happen next, focused or related to it, because you like it so much. And that's what this is for me, is it's something really cool when I get a new Instagram follower, shameless plug, or something along those lines. It's really exciting for me because I'm very much driven by creating tangible things to tell a story, which in part this is. Why she is, and why the focus of what this podcast is about. Mainly because I think, one, it's really important to be communicative with other people and be social, and in part, why not intertwine my passions and also be social with other people and get to know other people in that way. I think it's a really cool way to get to know people better and get to know their stories. It came from the concept of really just getting to know people better, and I'm also surrounded by some really amazing people like yourself. So, I think a big part of it also is I get this opportunity to hear from your story and learn from it. And so I'm learning just right now what I could have been doing and what I can continue to try and do that you've done to set yourself up so well. You came into an environment where you literally are building from the ground up, and I had plenty of opportunities and I didn't take them. And that was a big mistake of mine. But in hearing the stories of how it works successfully for other people, I can learn how to do that myself. Even though I won't be in Charlotte much longer and I'm going to a new place, it's essentially the same concept, just in a different city, and I need to work better and be better and work harder at setting up my life well, because I think partially I was really, really content with my work life. I really like work. I really like work. Thank you, Mary Kate.
Thanks, Mary Kate. Make sure you're listening to this.
I really like work, but I was not happy with my outside life. And I can't remember who said it, but somebody mentioned 50% of your life is work, but also 50% of your life is life. And if you're really happy with work, but you're not really happy with your life, that's 50% of your life that you're not happy with. And that stuck with me because I realized that I was doing something wrong, because I wasn't content with this other huge piece of my life. The fact that work was the most exciting thing and I dreaded the weekends goes to show me that I needed to be doing something better. That was a huge, huge tangent. I'm not really sure I answered all of those questions.
No, I think it's great. And I know I've been dying to know of why one day you swung by my desk and said, Jamie, I'm going to do a podcast.
You were instrumental in the beginning of that. I shot a bunch of questions your way of like, what do I do? What should I title it? Should it be about this, that? I initially really wanted to take on the concept of getting people really drunk, being very inebriated in a room with a microphone and ask them to solve a really hot button political issue.
That also would have been entertaining.
Copyrighted, that's mine. I'm going to take it for later. No, I really like this concept, though, just because there's no pressure or constraints. I can take it any which way I want. It's really undefined right now. So, I don't know. We'll see. But is there something like that for you that gets you really excited, or the fire ignited, or I don't really know how to describe it. Would that be bar for you, or is it something else?
No, I would say at this point in my life, it definitely is bar method as a whole. It's being just part of the community. Teaching is huge for me. I think that was a big boost in my self-confidence and my ability to kind of command a room. Even though I have a microphone and I'm getting paid to do it, it was really a big exercise in personal growth and getting out of my comfort zone, because I don't like being the center of attention or standing up in a room and talking for an hour. But it's just being part of that community that you find that's bigger than yourself, and that you're able to contribute as a whole, or in certain ways, specific ways, but then also that when you're away for a week and you come back, people say, "Oh, we missed you." It's just really, really nice and heartwarming, and that's kind of like the emotional side of things. But then physically, I'm being pushed exercise-wise each class to get better and stronger. And then in turn, I do that for my clients, is to motivate them and help them get stronger and more confident each day as well. So it's just this crazy cycle of empowerment. We love men, and we have a lot of men in class, but we wish there were more. So it's great female time in the studio. So we really just build each other up, and it's just really motivating and heartwarming. And so I would say right now that's the part in my life that is the biggest fire, and that's why I take that on as a part-time job. It's a very full part-time job, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, it's definitely. I dabbled a little bit with cycle instructing in college, and I do get it with at least the self-confidence boost for me was really a big thing. Getting up, literally being on a platform, like the studio at Wake there was a actual stage for me, and it was kind of a power trip. It was like, yeah, I'm up here.
You tell people to do things and they do it.
Yeah, and they're like, you know it, fitness, my health, and I'm going to come to you for these questions, and you don't actually probably really know what you're talking about. At least I didn't. But it is really cool and really fun to see people motivated and inspired to work harder on that last backwards arm exercise thing that
One weight lifts for those bar enthusiasts.
that I can't do ever correctly, or the last final sprint in a song. It's really cool to see people push themselves even harder and motivate themselves even more.
No, absolutely. I feel like this is such a great conversation, and I have so many questions that I want to be able to ask you, but kind of back on that front of motivating and empowering, and you touched on why you wanted to create the podcast and what your reasoning was behind it. Why She Is, why the direction of not sitting in a room getting drunk talking politics, but why a little bit more female focused, and how do you choose your guests? What's your vision? I'm throwing 5 questions at you, but talk about that.
Yeah, so one of the big things, so Why She Is, one, being surrounded by really great people and wanting to hear their stories and learn from them, but also it's a really important topic to me. In this political landscape nowadays, we're seeing a lot of turbulence and a lot of things go on in the female rights movement and all of that, and this is not politically driven whatsoever, but it is, I think, really important to highlight how even people who aren't famous or doing crazy things out there in the world, they're still really amazing women that you meet and interact with on an everyday basis. And you may just not know it because you're not asking the right questions. So that's kind of my goal, is to ask the right questions and ask more about how people are doing the things that they're doing, and then kind of learn from that, or not. I don't know. And then how do I choose my guests? That's actually my little twist on creativity is I actually ask you. So one of the last questions I'll ask you is who you would recommend to be the next person. And the reason for that is so that I am not staying within my circle. I want to make sure that I'm checking myself and that everybody's getting an opportunity to be on who I may not know or I may not be cued into their story or anything at all. So giving my guests the opportunity. Certainly there will be times where I'll select somebody and it'll be a little bit out of order, but when someone's nominated, they're tapped, they're in it.
Oh, I love it.
They can obviously certainly decline politely, but I would hope they wouldn't.
I almost did. I was like, why the heck did you ask me?
No, I mean, so really one of the reasons that I ask you especially first is because I feel like our stories contrast so much and we've talked about it already, of you came to a new space and did all the right things, and I came to a familiar space that was new and did all the wrong things. And so I think it's a nice Kickstarter for really what I'm trying to highlight is how people do things differently, and some people do them wrong, aka me, and how some people do them really right. So I guess that would lead into another question for you is what's next? Like, you've conquered yourself in Charlotte, you've got a job, 2 jobs, and you've got a new roommate and a new place, new sick pad, and a new German Shepherd that's at the door right now. Visit. Oh my gosh, she's big already.
Yeah, always huge.
So what's next? What's next on the list for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. We're very similarly wired in the way that there's always a goal, there's always a list, there's always something that's next. I don't know. For the first time, like, I'm really trying to live in the moment and enjoy, and I have an amazing friend group, and I have a lot of household things to fix and buy and change.
AKA the table.
I'm in the middle of building a table. I have to kill some bees' nests. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really feeling comfortable and happy in the space that I've created for myself, and I'm sure if you ask me the same question in 3 days, I'll have a different answer. But really trying to kind of live in the moment and enjoy, and I'm always thinking of what's next or what my next project is, but I'm not gunning for anything. I'm not wishing away my time now, which, kind of looping back when I was in Boston, I was really just fundamentally, or at the core, however you want to describe it, not happy, not fulfilled. There was something missing. And so I was like, okay, like when can I go home next? When's my next vacation? When can I do this? When can I try that? In a way of that I was trying to rush through or pass by time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so here I'm really not trying to do that, and I've never thought about it until you just asked me that question. So that's great.
I got to my goal.
Yeah, not to get complacent at all, but feeling very comfortable and wanting to spend time in my new home and harvest my friends, have my friends come over and host them, and starting to get a little bit more comfortable with that and enjoy the warmer weather and kind of take it as it comes.
Yeah. I mean, it's ambiguous and unknown, but nice territory to be in of, I don't know what's next. I don't know if I'll make a mistake or do something really awesome or whatever it is, but it's nice that you're content in the space that you are now. I don't think a lot of people are sometimes, and they're always wishing away and looking for the next best thing, and arguably that might have been myself because I made a change, but it's the pizza!
Pizza! Please hold.
That's definitely staying in there. All right, we're back, and we are so full right now. That was totally worth the hiatus, but we're back. I think we were just talking a little bit more about how a lot of people sometimes aren't necessarily happy with where they are, and arguably that might have been myself with making a big change. But I feel like personally, my goal with what this podcast has been so far, episode 1, I've learned enough already, just from you and hearing your experiences and everything. So you've been a really awesome guest on all of that.
Oh, well, thank you. You're way too kind, too sweet. And I've learned a lot about you as well, and your motivations and kind of what pushes you to get better and grow bigger. You have this perfect platform. In a month, you're moving to a new place, a new school, a new chapter. Mm-hmm. And so it's very exciting, terrifying, scary, nerve-wracking, all the emotions. But you've been so kind and complimentary of my little experience and the choices that I've made. And that was just right for me. I could easily argue that when I moved to Boston, I did it wrong. It was wrong for me. Clearly, how things kind of played out led me to being here. So it was right at the moment. So certainly don't ever discount, how you moved to Charlotte or kind of how things unfolded, because you have a chance to rebuild and start from scratch. So I think, I don't know, from the little Elise I met 9 months ago, you've grown a ton. And I'm just very impressed with your maturity and how self-aware that you are to be able to not only build a podcast in none of your free time, but to then, kind of really use this as a platform to help others, but yourself as well, to grow and change things moving forward. So this is awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I've definitely learned a lot. Hope the listeners have learned a lot.